Welcome back. Our guest this week on the World Trade Webcast is Rita Ramalho, manager of the Doing Business project for the World Bank. The 2015 report contains a number of best practices and case studies. Rita, today I thought we could talk about what are the most actionable next steps based on the report, both for businesses and for governments.
I think on the actionable next steps, it of course depends country by country and depends on what level of regulations do they have. But in general, the report is a tool that governments and entrepreneurs can use to identify what are the areas that need further improvement. So, for instance, governments can go to our website and see all the steps, time, and cost to open a company or to import or export a container. And through that, they can either identify what are areas for improvement. Is it taking too long because the container gets stuck in customs, or is it because the transportation system is not as good as it could be? So they can understand where is the root of the problem and try to act on it and try to improve it, or they can look at the aspect of enforcing contracts and seeing if their commercial courts are working in the most efficient and effective way, and try to understand what are the areas that could be more problematic, if it's the getting a judgment on the claim, or is it to actually enforce that judgment, where does the problem lie? And by providing that information, people can actually act on it. So there is a lot of action and a lot of work already being done by many countries in this area. So there were, over the past year, there were 230 reforms. But when we look at over the 10 years of data that we have, there were 2,400 reforms in the different areas that we measure. So there is a lot of interest and a lot of action. And of course, not all these reforms, or only a few of these reforms, in a way, were a reflection of the report. There were a lot of these changes that would have happened even if we weren't measuring this area. But we do know that around 20% of them, they were designed having in mind the report, having in mind information that was provided by the report. So that I think in terms of next steps and actions is just to absorb the information provided and see where there is room for improvement and what areas countries can act on.
Excellent. And in terms of best practices, are there any best practices in this year's report that you find either particularly enlightening or particularly helpful in terms of what some of the main stakeholders that will be reading the report could take away from this in terms of next steps?
I think definitely one of the best practices that it's clear in this year's report and has been also in the past is the use of electronic online services for registering a firm, for paying taxes, for transferring property. I think that's definitely a best practice because it makes the system more reliable, more efficient, and more cost effective, even though there is a fixed cost initially, a fixed investment, but then once the system is ongoing, it normally is cheaper than just a manual system. So that's definitely one of the best practice areas. And then when it comes to more of the legislation, there are different aspects that could be best practices. So for instance, in resolving insolvency, which is one of the areas we measure, one of the best practices we promote is to have reorganization as one of the options when a company goes through financial distress. So then topic by topic, there are different best practices that we can highlight.
Excellent. And again, for those of you that are interested in more details on best practices and on the report in general, please visit the World Bank's website to get more information. And we've been talking all this week with Rita Ramalho about the Doing Business 2015 report from the World Bank. Rita, thanks so much for joining us this week.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
It's been our pleasure, and kudos to you and your team for a terrific report.
Thank you.
Please join us again on Monday as the World Trade Webcast continues. And for our latest schedule of upcoming episodes, subscribe to us with any of the links below and bookmark this page. All of our previous webcasts can be found right here at thinkglobal.com/webcast. And thanks for watching.